It's always heartbreaking to see a great game studio close its doors, especially one that consistently delivered unforgettable experiences. Mimimi Games is a perfect example. Despite earning glowing reviews and scoring above 80 on Metacritic with all of their recent titles, the studio was forced to shut down in 2023. I still remember reading the announcement and just sitting there, shocked. This was a team that had carved out a niche in a genre I didn't even know I loved until they showed me how incredible it could be. Their games didn't just entertain me, they redefined what I looked for in strategy and stealth titles. So this video is my way of saying thank you. From a humble player to an extraordinary studio, Mimimi Games may be gone, but they'll be deeply, genuinely, and forever Mimimi-missed. The story of Mimimi Games began in Munich, Germany, where two video game design students, Dominik Abe and Johannes Roth, decided to team up. In October 2008, they officially formed Mimimi and set out on their game development journey. Their debut project, Grounded. No, not that one. Despite being their first game, it made an immediate impact, earning second place at the 2009 Games Load Newcomer Awards and a nominant for Best Concept from a Student competition at the 2010 Deutsche Computerspielprix. The next few years saw Mimimi Games focusing primarily on mobile titles before they released their first game on Steam in 2014, The Last Tinker: City of Colors. This title was very different from what we would later come to expect from Mimimi, offering a colorful, moral-driven platformer. Set in Color Town, a city divided by three primary color factions, red, blue, and green, the game introduces a fourth, long-forgotten color, purple, which becomes corrupted and threatens to erase all color from existence. The story follows Koru, a young monkey who discovers he's the last of the Tinkers, individuals with the power to manipulate color. Using his unique ability, Koru must solve puzzles, defeat enemies, and restore color to the world. While The Last Tinker showcased Mimimi's flair for creativity and storytelling in a vibrant, family-friendly setting, it was only a stepping stone toward what would become their true signature style. As the studio evolved, so did their ambitions, shifting from colorful platformers to tightly crafted real-time tactics games where stealth, strategy, and precision took center stage. This new direction would lead to the critically acclaimed titles that put Mimimi on the map in a whole new way. Although Shadow Tactics, Blades of the Shogun and Desperados III were released 4 years apart and are set in vastly different worlds, they share the same foundation. Because of that, I'll be talking about them together as they represent a cohesive evolution of Mimimi's vision. To say these games blew me away would be putting it far too lightly. That wouldn't even begin to capture just how much I adored them. If you want to judge me for being dramatic, go ahead. But I'm about to gush over what might genuinely be the best games I've ever played. Here's the basic premise. You control a squad of up to 5 characters, each with unique abilities, as you sneak your way through increasingly complex missions across a linear story. The concept immediately hooked me, but I'll admit, I had my doubts. How do you even manage 5 characters at once in a stealth game without it becoming a chaotic mess? Turns out, the answer is simple, with incredibly good design. The controls are surprisingly intuitive. Everything feels snappy, responsive, and precise. Your characters do exactly what you expect them to. No fuss, no frustration. Shadow Tactics and Desperado 3 offer players a wild amount of freedom, but never at the expense of challenge. You can combine abilities in a ton of creative ways to tackle a problem, but nothing is ever handed to you. And that's where the real brilliance shines. These games strike a rare balance between open-ended solutions and tightly crafted difficulty. Few stealth games ever get that right. What makes it work so well is how honest and consistent the game is with its systems. Every guard's line of sight, every sound radius, every reaction to footprints or distractions, it's all clearly communicated and predictable. That means when your plan fails, it's on you. Not because the game was unfair, but because you missed something. And that's the kind of failure that feels motivating, not frustrating. One of the things I value most in games is replayability, and in that department, these titles absolutely deliver. The levels are instantly fun to revisit because there are so many different ways to solve each scenario that no 2 playthroughs ever feel the same. You're constantly encouraged to experiment, to find new paths, new strategies, and new combinations of character abilities. On top of that, the games throw in special challenges that push your creativity even further. Things like don't swim or don't use disguises force you to think outside the box and find entirely new ways to outsmart your enemies. Desperado 3 even features barren challenges, which remix levels with different character lineups, completely transforming how you approach the mission. It's not just that the levels are replayable, they're designed with replayability in mind, and the game actively invites you to come back and try something new every single time. Bottom line, the gameplay in both Shadow Tactics and Desperado 3 is phenomenal. The characters feel great to control, the level design strikes a perfect balance between freedom and challenge, and the clear, consistent rules give players the confidence to push the limits of what's possible. These games absolutely nail the core fantasy they're going for, and then go beyond by offering missions that are not just fun once, but over and over again. Gameplay may be the beating heart of these games, but trust me, it's far from the only thing worth celebrating. By now, it's probably obvious that these games look fantastic, but what might surprise you is just how good they sound too. The soundtracks are incredibly well crafted, and the ambient tracks that play during missions do a brilliant job of setting the tone, whether it's tension or quiet reflection. Pull you into the world even deeper. And surprisingly, the stories are actually pretty solid as well. Sure, the overarching plots are fairly straightforward and a bit predictable, but that's not really the point. What truly makes the narratives shine are the characters. They're brought to life through sharp writing and excellent performances, constantly playing off each other in clever, funny, and occasionally touching ways. Their interactions make every mission feel like more than just a puzzle. It's a story unfolding with people you grow to care about. In the end, I honestly consider Shadow Tactics and Desperado 3 to be the best games I've ever played. Not just because I had a blast playing them or because I've fallen completely in love with the genre, but because they masterfully deliver on everything they aim to be. They revived a long-dormant genre and turned it into something truly special. They gave us the most compelling stealth scenarios I've ever experienced, set in rich, beautiful words with unforgettable characters and stories that actually stick with you. These games didn't just set a new bar, they became the benchmark. In December 2021, Mimimi released Shadow Tactics Aiko's Choice, a standalone title that essentially feels like a DLC for the original game. It's undeniably enjoyable, but it definitely leans more towards an expansion than a fully fledged new experience. The visuals and gameplay mechanics are identical to the original, which isn't a bad thing, they still hold up beautifully, but the story, while engaging, is relatively short. For that reason, I find it hard to fully recommend at its standalone price of $19.99. Personally, I picked it up as part of a humble bundle alongside a few other games, and in that context, I really enjoyed it, so I can't complain too much. And that brings us to Mimimi's final title, Shadow Gambit: The Cursed Crew, released in August 2023. Shadow Gambit is, surprise surprise, a stealth strategy game where you command a crew of cursed pirates, each with their own distinct magical abilities. Your mission? Sneak past and outsmart the fanatical Inquisition of the Burning Maiden in search of Captain Mordecai's treasure, all from an isometric perspective. What truly sets Shadow Gambit apart is its full embrace of the supernatural. While both Shadow Tactics and Desperado 3 took place in grounded, realistic settings, where, aside from Isabella's voodoo powers, character abilities were plausible, Shadow Gambit throws realism overboard, and it's all the better for it. Every one of the 8 playable crew members has unique magical powers that open up a ton of creative possibilities. From teleportation to mind control, these abilities aren't just flashy, they're incredibly fun to experiment with and combine in new ways. Even better, you're free to choose your crew for each mission. You're not locked into a specific team, which dramatically increases the number of ways you can approach any given situation and boosts replayability in a huge way. A mission tackled with Salidi, John, and Teresa plays completely differently than the same mission tackled with Guile, Pincus, and Teresa. This freedom, combined with the magical abilities, expands the stealth sandbox to an entirely new level, and I absolutely love it. Another twist that Shadow Gambit introduces to the traditional Mimimi formula is its open-ended mission design. Most missions take place on large, replayable islands where you get to choose your landing point and can approach your objective from any angle. On your first visit to any given island, you'll likely see less than half of what it has to offer. This approach not only boosts player freedom and creativity, but also creates a stronger connection to each location, as you'll return to these islands multiple times for new objectives. For the most part, the addition of magical abilities in this open mission structure are great successes. However, they do come with trade-offs. Giving players access to powerful abilities, while also allowing them to choose any crew they want, makes Shadow Gambit noticeably easier than Shadow Tactics or Desperado III. In the previous games, the developers knew exactly which characters you'd be using and could fine-tune every challenge around their specific toolkits. But in Shadow Gambit, levels have to accommodate any possible crew combination, which inevitably limits how tightly they can be designed. To offset this, the devs introduced new enemy types, like guards with extremely long view cones and linked guards that must be eliminated simultaneously. These are clever additions, but the game is surprisingly conservative with how often it uses them. Their limited implementation doesn't quite make up for how much more powerful the player is in this game compared to Mimimi's earlier titles. Rarely did I encounter a situation that stumped me for more than a few moments, something that never would have been the case in their previous games. Another side effect of revisiting the same island is a sense of repetition. Often you'll sneak past the same guards in the same spots as you did in previous missions. Personally, this didn't bother me. I think it's because I enjoyed games like Deathloop, where repetition is part of the experience. I guess I just don't mind doing the same thing over and over if the core gameplay loop is satisfying, but I completely understand why others might see this as a negative. That said, most return visits to islands involve exploring entirely new areas, not just rehashing old ones. And moving on from the negatives for a moment, let's talk about the art and atmosphere. Simply put, the game looks fantastic. The environments are beautifully detailed, the character designs are vibrant and expressive, and the entire aesthetic drips with charm and personality. The story is also pretty good, though it doesn't hit quite as hard for me as the narratives in Mimimi's earlier games. So, looking at the bigger picture, Shadow Gambit tells a good story, but unfortunately, the structure of the game holds it back from reaching its full potential. The narrative unfolds through a few different layers. The main storyline that progresses as you complete missions, the crew tales that serve as short intermissions between levels, and the captain's tests, where individual crew members confront personal demons from their past. The overarching plot is engaging and built on a strong concept, but it's hampered by one major limitation. The order in which you revive your crew is entirely up to you. That flexibility is great for gameplay, but it comes at a cost. The story can't assume which characters are present at any given moment. And as a result, most of them are sidelined. Only a select few are consistently involved in the plot, which leaves the rest of the crew feeling underutilized. This open-ended structure also weakens the impact of the missions themselves. Much of the game revolves around collecting black pearls and soul energy to revive your crew. Tasks that have little to no connection to the actual narrative. Because of this, the main plot often fades into the background and lacks the strong, character-driven moments that made Mimimi's previous titles so emotionally resonant. On the brighter side, Shadow Gambit has a solid progression system. Unlocking new crew members and enhancing their abilities always gave me something to look forward to. Experimenting with different combinations and discovering how their powers synergized was genuinely exciting and added a strong sense of momentum. Also, returning from previous games are badges, optional challenges that encourage replayability and creativity. I loved them in Shadow Tactics and Desperado III, and they're just as great here. They add a fun layer of mastery and experimentation that really brings out the best in the game's systems. In many ways, Shadow Gambit is Mimimi's boldest, most imaginative title. It expands the formula in exciting directions, even if some of those risks come with trade-offs. It's also widely ambitious and surpasses their previous games in several respects, but it's also more flawed. So, would I recommend any of these games? Well, yes and no. These titles are niche. They demand patience, precision, and a particular mindset. They're not designed for everyone. But if these games do click with you, then my god, will they click with you. They'll get under your skin in the best way possible. How much you enjoy them depends on what kind of player you are and what you seek in a game. But if you're anything like me, you'll fall head over heels, and you'll happily sink dozens of hours into every one of them. Over their 15-year journey, Mimimi Games crafted a total of 5 remarkable titles, along with several engaging DLCs. Their dedication and passion have left an indelible mark on the gaming industry, and for that, we owe them our deepest gratitude. To the incredible team at Mimimi Games, thank you for the unforgettable experiences and the worlds you've brought to life. Your hard work and creativity have truly enriched our gaming lives. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and keep the spirit of Mimimi alive, one stealthy step at a time. And if you're interested in exploring more about exceptional game developers, check out my in-depth video covering Lazy Bear's full portfolio. I'm sure you'll find it just as captivating.